الانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه آمين اللهم آمين. We intend to study and to teach, to take and give reminders, benefit and assistance, and to inspire myself and others to hold fast to the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, to call to guidance and to direct to goodness, seeking the continuance of Allah, His pleasure, nearness, and reward. Ameen. Allahumma ameen. Inshallah, last week we finished chapter 2 on intention. Inshallah, this week we're going to continue to chapter 3 on vigilance. Inshallah, over to you, Ustaz, if you are ready. Can I hear you, Ustaz?
Now, can you hear me?
Can you say again?
Okay. If I speak like this now, can you hear me?
Maybe closer. Okay.
All right. Let's try.
We can hear you.
Bismillah.
It's just the sound, the volume is not that high.
Oh, okay. How about now? Is it better?
Not quite.
Okay. Well, can you hear me now?
Very softly. Oh, it's
Okay.
just my sound. You try. Or it's just my speaker, maybe. You try again?
Yours. How about the rest?
I think should be okay.
Can
Yeah.
everyone else hear properly?
Ah, that's better. That's
Clear
better.
but low
That's
volume.
better.
Oh, okay. How about the others? Is it still clear but low volume?
Now it's alright.
Okay.
When you put the mic
Let's go like
closer.
this. Okay. How about now? Is it better? Is it the same?
Okay. Okay. It's good.
Okay. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Inshallah we resume our reading of the Risalatul Mu'awana. Please interject if the sound, if the volume is problematic. I mean, write something in the box so you can unmute yourself and say you cannot hear. Yes. Inshallah, we continue our session now with Al-Muraqabah, which is on vigilance. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قال المؤلف رضي الله عنه وأنفعنا به وعلومه وعليك, and it is your duty, my brother, يا أخي, بمراقبة الله تعالى في حركاتك وسكناتك ولحظاتك وطرفاتك وخطراتك وإراداتك وسائر حالاتك واستشعر قربه منك واعلم أنه ناظر إليك ومطلع عليك لا يخفى عليه منك خافية. Imam Haddad said that you have to be observant, or rather the word you have to be vigilant, yes, as a translation of muraqabah. The term muraqabah means it is the second aspect of ihsan, which is to know that Allah is watching you. That is muraqabah. To be observant that Allah is watching you is muraqabah. So to be vigilant. Yes, but sometimes if we merely say vigilant and we do not connect it with the hal of muraqabah, the general condition of being vigilant means to be aware, to be cautious. Yes. But muraqabah necessarily entails that being vigilant, being aware, and cautious must be connected with your knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes. So therefore, Imam Abdullah bin Ala bin Haddad is urging us that we ought to be vigilant, that we are to be aware and cautious in our movement and in our silence. Yes. In all our moments. Yes. And in the things that crosses our hearts, in the things that we will and wish, and everything that pertains to your reality as a human being. Meaning to say, in every condition that you are in, yes, either asleep or either before sleeping or when you wake, when you are walking and when you're sitting, when you're in the midst and company of people, or when you're alone. Yes. He said, "Wastash'ir," and be aware and feel, yes, and try to be conscious of his closeness to you. And know, wa'alam, and know that he is looking, yes, he's observing, nazir ilayka, wa muttali alayka, that nothing is hidden from his sight pertaining to yourself. La yaqfa alayhi minka khafiyah. Nothing is hidden from him. Yes, as for human beings, or as for human sight, that which is beyond walls is not seen. That which is at a great distance is not seen. That which is at a too close a distance is not seen. Yes, that's why a person can be a magician in English, but in Malay they call it ahli silap mata, isn't it? Meaning to say the person who makes tricks, yes, who makes tricks is a person who depends on the failure of eyesight, the failure of eyesight, yes, because of its limitation. And similarly, the human sight of intelligence is also limited, isn't it? A person may be shrewd and may be cunning so as to hide his motives behind a sweet face, yes, or behind a semblance, behind some sort of trickery, and then you might not know who his real self is. So therefore, the person who is a muraqib, yes, the person who is the one charged with observing you, may fail in his eyesight, may fail in his observation, yes. And sometimes even with the assistance of technology, there are still things which are hidden from the sight of other human beings. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the muraqib, there is nothing that is hidden from his sight. لا يخفى عليه منك خفية وما يعزب عن ربك. Yes, Imam Haddad quotes the Quran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, nothing disappears, or rather nothing is hidden from your Lord, even if it is the size, yes, mithqala dharrah, if it is the size of an atom, if it is the size of the smallest grain. Fil ardi wala fis sama, either in the earth or in the heaven, in the realms of the seen and the realms of the unseen. Yes, because it includes, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also knows that which crosses your heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows of the whisperings of shaitan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala certainly knows of the descent of the angels upon you, because he is ar-raqib. وَإِن تَجْهَرْ بِالْقَوْلِ فَإِنَّهُ يَعْلَمْ سِرَّ وَأَخْفَى. Even if you were to enunciate, even if you were to articulate the things which is hidden in your heart, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows your secret and that which is deeper than that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what crosses your conscious mind, which you do not utter, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also knows what is hidden beneath that. That's what is the intention beneath that. Sir wa akhfa. Wa huwa ma'aka aynama kunta, and he is with you wherever you may be. Bil ilm wal ihata wal iqtidar. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is encompassing upon you, or rather, what does it mean for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be with you in the context of this verse, ma'ak? Yes, what does it mean when Allah said, wa huwa ma'akum aynama kuntum? He is with you wherever you may be. It means that he is with you first and foremost in knowledge. Yes, a person is with you, or rather Allah is with you in knowledge, meaning to say there is nothing that you do in his ignorance. There is nothing that he is ignorant of. Yes. So that means to say he knows everything. Wa bil ihata, through his encompassing. Yes, because everything that runs in existence, everything that happens in existence, everything that escapes, everything that ceases to exist, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses it in his knowledge and in his mercy. Wal iqtidar, and also in his determination. Yes, in his determining what happens. Yes, and fate. Which is why one of the consequences of secularization is the de-fatalization of history, the removal of the element of determinism and fate, the removal of the notion of rizq, the removal of the notion of, in Malay we call it jodoh, the removal of the notion of al-ajal, Yes, in Malay we say dah sampai ajal. Itu bukan rezekinya. Yang si fulanah bukan jodohnya. So on and so forth. These are elements that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses not only with knowledge but with power. Yes, and if He has determined so and so to be such, it will be as such. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ar-Raqib. Wa yadulluka ma'al hidayah. And also that He gives you guidance. Yes, He gives you guidance from time to time in the form of persons, in the form of books, in the form of events, yes, in the form of signs. Yadulluka. Yes, ma'al hidayah wal i'an wal hifz in kunta minal abrar. So therefore, if you know that He is all observing, yes, His interaction with you, if you are amongst the abrar, if you are amongst the salihin, is that it will come with hidayah, guidance, it will come with i'ana, assistance, and it will come with hifz, protection. So just observe this in your life. Yes, it is not necessary for a believer that he or she has to wait for a miracle to happen to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all observing. For the believer, yes, for the believer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is in constant relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever in his life through these three. Yes, al-hidayah, wal-i'ana, wal-hifz. Al-hidayah, guidance. Al-i'ana, assistance. And al-hifz, protection. Yes. Just observe yourself. Yes. How He has protected you, how you have been fed, how your wealth comes in your way, your rizq, and so on and so forth. Fastahyi. Yes. So therefore, have some al-haya, modesty, shame. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, al-iman, that iman is of different degrees of manifestation. Yes, in riwayat it says 60, in another 70 branches of the manifestation of iman. A'laha, the highest manifestation of one's iman, qawlu la ilaha illallah. It is when a person utters, yes, with its meanings, of course, that there is no God but Allah. Yes, and when we say la ilaha illallah, the term ilah there refers to many things. Meaning, one of them, there is no ar-raqib other than Allah. Yes, there is no possessor of the sifah, of perfections other than Allah. There is no, as sometimes in the tahleel we read, la ma'buda illallah. There is no deity worthy of worship other than Allah. La maqsuda illallah. There is no deity worthy of being desired. I mean to say, in terms of desiring his feeling content with you. Yes, there is no deity whose contentment is more sought than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wala mawjuda illallah. And in higher stages, yes, the person's tawheed, when he says la ilaha illallah, he understands that there is nothing in existence except illa billah, except through the power, the volition, the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the highest form of iman. Wa adnaha, and the lowest manifestation, or rather the subtle, the simple manifestation of Islam, or rather of iman, is when you remove obstacles from the middle of the road. Yes, that is a sign of iman. When you do that for the sake of another person. Wal haya, then the Prophet said, al haya, shame, modesty, is a sign of iman. And in another hadith he said, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحْيِ, if you have no shame, فَاسْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ, then do what you please. If you have no shame, then do what you please. And indeed, the characteristic of the religion of Islam is al-haya. Yes, the characteristic of the religion of Islam is al-haya, modesty. It is specific to the religion of Islam. So therefore, فَاسْتَحْيِ مِنْ مَوْلَاكَ, and the greatest degree of modesty, or rather the greatest manifestation of modesty and shame and bashfulness or shyness, is to display it, yes, in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَاسْتَحْيِ مِنْ مَوْلَاكَ حَقُّ الْحَيَاء, the reality of al-haya. In truth, we see that the catastrophe that befell the Muslim community in our age, yes, why the catastrophe, the tragedy, the crisis that we suffer today, one of its causes, yes, is the loss of shame, isn't it? It's the loss of shame. It is when a person suffers lack of shame in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. that he may, for example, he may cheat and lie and fail in his duties. Yes, a person who has no shame, yes, would betray his spouse, would betray his children, and likewise, vice versa. A person who has no shame, yes, has no scruples in disobeying his parents. A person who has no shame in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no scruples in cheating in business. A person who has no shame has no scruples in listening to his desires, even to the detriment of others. Yes, that's why Imam Haddad said, "Fastahi, have shame before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just have shame. Yes, malu sikit, yes, in front of Allah. Fastahi min maulak. Haqqal haya, yes, to the utmost reality of haya. So the outcome of muraqabah, yes, the outcome of being vigilant is the feeling of al-haya, yeah, before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wajtahid an la yaraka haythu nahak. Then struggle. Yes? Struggle that he should not see you where he forbids. That you should not be, yes, where he does not want you to be. Wala yaqiduka haythu amarak. And he should not be missing you where he commands you. To say where you ought to be, you should be. Where you ought not to be, let him not find you. Yes, where you ought not to be, let him not find you. Where you ought to be, let him find you. وَعْبُدْهُ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. And serve him. Yes, serve him. Submit to him as if you see him. فَإِنْ لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. If you are unable to see him, then do so with the knowledge that he sees you. Do so with the knowledge that he sees you. Allah Akbar. And does he see us? Yes, yes. We know from the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, as we quoted just now, وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. He is with you wherever you may be. And we read also, وَإِن تَجْهَرْ بِالْقَوْلِ فَإِنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ السِّرَّ وَأَخْفَى. And he knows if you utter what you utter, that he knows what is in your secret and he knows what is hidden. And he is the one who said, Inna rabbaka labil mirsad. Indeed, your Lord is all observing. وَمَتَى رَأَيْتَ مِن نَفْسِكَ تَكَاسُلًا. So now, if you observe in yourself that there is some degree of recalcitrance, there is some degree of laziness, and ta'atik, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أو مَيْلًا. If you find a certain tendency, if you find a certain inclination towards the ma'siyah, wal-iyadu billah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. فَذَكِّرْهَا. Remind your nafs. بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَسْمَعُكَ وَيَرَاكَ وَيَعْلَمُ سِرَّكَ وَنَجْوَاكَ. Know and remind our very nafs. Yes, my dear nafs, I remind you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows your secret, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the things you whisper. فَإِن لَمْ يُفِدْهَا. So now if you try to do that with your nafs, yes, try to do that on your own, yes, try to speak to your nafs and tell your nafs those things, and supposing this does not benefit you, meaning to say your nafs is such a obstinate, yes, it's of an obstinate or a stubborn nature. Until were you to tell that to your nafs, it doesn't benefit it. هذا ذكر لقصور معرفتها, because the nafs does not know the jalal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The jalal, yes, meaning to say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our Lord, He is al-kamal, meaning to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala possesses all the attributes of perfection. Of the kamal, of the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are aspects of his countenance which reflect his jalal, his magnificence. Yes, which includes, of course, the fact that he creates and he destroys, the fact that he gives life and he takes away, the fact that he guides, yes, and he leads astray, the fact that he raises and the fact that he brings down. So that the latter aspects, yes, that he is al-mudhil, that he is al-khafid, the one that brings down, the one that removes the arrogant, and so on and so forth. So supposing we do not know that aspect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَاذْكُرْ لَهَا مَكَانَ الْمَلَكَيْنِ الْكَرِيمَيْنِ اللَّذَيْنِ يَكْتُبَانَ الْحَسَنَاتِ وَالسَّيِّئَاتِ. Supposing you think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, out of our own ignorance, is distant from us, yes, out of our own ignorance, billah, then at the very least remind ourselves of the angels that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has assigned to us. Yes, Raqib wal Atid. Yes, the angels that He has assigned to us. Alladaini yaktuban al-hasanat wa sayyi'at. Yes, and remember, yes, that the two angels assigned to you, they do not write based on your whims and desires. They write based on the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That they are honest servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That they will not be, they will not, yes, unlike in the human kingdom, we will see that there are individuals who are willing to, corrupt individuals who are willing to change their testimony for your sake. They are corrupt individuals, yes, who are willing to be an instrument to your desires, meaning to say that you can bribe them, that you can somehow blackmail them, yes, into doing what you will. But the angels, they are, let us say, self-sufficient against whatever you plead. Yes, the angels will write as things are, yes, as they observe as things are. Hasanat wa sayyi'at. And watlu alaiha. So therefore read upon your nafs. إذ يتلقى المتلقيان عن اليمين وعن الشمال قعيد ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد. Yes, there is no two persons that meet. Yes, and when we say meet, we do not just mean meet in present, in the bodily sense, but also now we use online meetings, meetings in the writing sense and other forms of meetings, except that from your left and from your right, yes, there are angels. Ma yalfidh min qawlin, that you do not utter any statement except that there is the observing one, yani the angels who are tasked with writing and recording and reporting all that you have done. فَإِنْ لَمْ تَتَأَثَّرْ, there are, of course, those amongst us, yes, even after having been reminded of the angels, yes, بهذا التذكير فذكرها. So Imam Haddad gives a third way of trying to practice muraqabah. So one is muraqabah ma Allah. The second is the muraqabah of being vigilant of the angels. What third? Because now the degrees of the degrees of the reality comes to more and more of the zahir sense. Yes, and that which is manifest. Yes. Then remind yourself of the qurbil maut. Yes, remind yourself of the closeness, the proximity of death. وَأَنَّهُ أَقْرَبُ غَائِبْ يُنْتَظَرُ. Yes, death is something of the unseen. Yes? Death is something not known now. But it is of the unseen which is closest to you. Closest to all of us, yes. And it is something awaited, because either you are aware, you are not, either you pay attention, or you don't. That still approaches. Yes. Yes, and put fear in your soul. Yes, بهجومه على غرة وأنه متى نزل بها وهي على حال غير مرضية الله أكبر. Yes, and try to imagine of its proximity, and that if were it to come, yes, and you are in a state which is not in a state where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is content with you, تنقلب بخسران, you will return with a regret that knows no limits, a regret that knows no ends. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَنْفَعُهَا هَذَا التَّخْوِيفَ فَاذْكُرْهَا. So therefore, supposing even death sometimes, yes, does not benefit us, Allahu Akbar, yes, then therefore remind our nafs of مَا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ بِهِ مَنْ أَطَاعَهُ مِنَ الثَّوَابِ الْعَظِيمِ. Then remind ourselves of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised to those who obey Him, from the great rewards, and what is warned, yes, for those who disobey Him, min al-azab al-alim, from the punishment that we will not be able to bear. وَقُلْ لَهَا يَا نَفْسِ, and tell to your nafs, my dear self, yes, O self, مَا بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ مِن مُسْتَعْتَبْ وَمَا بَعْدَ الدُّنْيَا مِن دَارٍ إِلَّا الْجَنَّةِ. So after you finish this life, which is short, and you think about it, supposing present-day science tells us that the entire universe and its content has taken billions of years to achieve, to arrive at where we are at. And of this, perhaps several thousand years has been the life of man. And of that several thousand years of the life of man, less than 100 is the portion accorded to you. How short is that? Yeah? Less than a portion, less than 100 years, or perhaps some very rarely more than that. Even beyond the ages of 60 and 70, as the Prophet said, my ummah lives between 60 and 70, and whatever is beyond that is rare. Yes. So now, if you think about how tiny is the portion that you live compared to the eternity of the afterlife, then think, yes, that in the afterlife, you will either be in the camp of those who are beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, deserving His praises, being given an eternity of bliss in His Jannah, or you're in the other camp, yes, in the camp of those who are in His wrath, those who are oblivious, those who are left in oblivion, those who are left in hijab against Him, meaning to say that you are veiled from being able to communicate with Him, Allah subhanahu. So therefore, yes, وَالنَّظَرِ إِلَى وَجْهِ اللَّهِ الْكَرِيمِ الْمَنَّانِ. Naam. So therefore choose. Yes, tell yourself that every day. Yes, choose. فَاخْتَرِ لِنَفْسِكَ إِنْ شِئْتَ. If you like, yes, choose. Yes, there is choice for everyone, isn't it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Allah gave us hearing and seeing. Yes, hearing and seeing. Imma shakiran or imma kafura. Inna hadaynahu sabila. Yes, we have shown the sabil, the path. Imma shakir. Either you choose the path of those who are grateful and thankful, or kafur. Or you choose the path of disobedience, obstinacy. Yes, it is either this or that. فَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. Yes, Allah said, of these two. The one leads to Nar Jahannam, and the other leads to paradise. Now, ta'ah. So therefore, if you choose ta'ah, choose the life of obedience. Now think about the consequence. Takun aqibatuha al-fawz wa ridwan. Yes, the result is victory. The result is contentment. The result is eternity fi fasih al-jinan, in the midst, in the bliss of paradise. وَالنَّظَرِ إِلَى وَجْهِ اللَّهِ الْكَرِيمِ الْمَنَّانِ. And the observation, the beatific vision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's most holy and sacred countenance. Yes, greater than which does not exist, more beautiful than which does not exist, nor can it occur to any mind. Yes. Allahu Akbar. وَإِنْ شِئْتَ. And supposing now you choose the other life. Allahu Akbar. Ma'asiyah. Yes, choose the life of ma'asiyah. The life of disobedience. The life of listening to your shahwa and nafs. What then is the end of that? Yes. Al-khizi. First and foremost, you will suffer al-khizi wal-hawan wal-sakhar. Yes, you suffer being removed from the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You suffer tadallul, or what is called deprecation. Yes. Wal-hawan wal-sakhar. And you suffer the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wal-hirman. And you suffer also being veiled, being removed from His mercy. Wal-habas bayna tabaqatin niran. And you will be imprisoned in the different levels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hellfire. Wal-iyad billah. Fa'alij nafsak. So therefore cure yourself with this. بهذه الأذكار. Yes. Cure yourself with these reminders when you find yourself to be lazy. Anita'. Yes, to perform Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command. وَرُكُونِهَا إِلَى الْمَعْصِيَةِ. And its inclination towards the ma'siyah. فَإِنَّهَا مِنَ الْأَدْوِيَةِ النَّافِيَةِ. Indeed, to remind ourselves of these final destinations, and which of it that we desire is one of the most powerful and significant and effective medicine. Yes, for the sicknesses of the heart. ثم إنه إن ثار من قلبك عند استشعارك عن الله يراك حياء منه يمنعك عن مخالفته ويحملك على التشمير في طاعته فعندك شيء من حقائق المراقبة. And then, supposing we say that in the performance of vigilance, in the observation of vigilance, you see that what manifests what appears from yourself is this sense of haya. So the purpose of muraqabah is al-haya. The purpose of muraqabah, as we said just now, is the feeling of modesty, shyness, yes, to be ashamed before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then it has been, and if the result is that it blocks you, it makes you cease from doing that which he has prohibited, then indeed you have obtained the reality of al-muraqabah. وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْمُرَاقَبَةَ مِنْ أَشْرَفِ الْمَقَامَاتِ. And know that al-muraqabah is of the most noble of the maqam. We know that in the language or in the terminologies used by the Ahl Tasawwuf, that they distinguish between the hal and the maqam. Yes, the maqam are stations. Yes, stations, meaning to say, if supposing we mention things like sabar, patience, shukr, gratitude, and then khawf, fear. And now, Imam Haddad mentioned the maqam of muraqabah, vigilance. Maqam are basically a condition of the heart which is stable. Yes, a condition of the heart which is stable, like that. If it is something that comes and goes, then it is a hal. Yes, sometimes a person may feel love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it comes and goes. A person may feel fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it comes and goes. But if a person can be firm in a particular station, then it becomes a particular hal, then it becomes a maqam. Yes, and it is one of the most noble maqam. وَأَرْفَعُ الْمَنَازِلِ وَأَعْلَى الدَّرَجَاتِ. One of the highest degrees. وَهِيَ مَقَامُ الْإِحْسَانِ. Yes, al-muraqabah is an aspect of al-ihsan, excellence in religion, which is stated by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-ihsan, excellence in religion, is attained by a person who worships Allah as if you see him, and if not, then to worship him as he sees you, yeah, with the knowledge that he sees you. وَكُلُّ وَاحِدٍ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And every single person, every single believer who believes that Allah la yakhfa alayhi shay, that there is nothing hidden in the knowledge of Allah, fil ardi wala fis sama, upon the earth nor in the skies, وَيَعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَهُ, and to know that Allah is always with him, أَيْنَ مَكَانٍ, wherever he may be, لَا يَخْفَى عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٍ مِنْ حَرَكَاتِهِ وَسَكَنَاتِهِ, there is nothing hidden from his movement, nor from his state of rest, وَلَكِنْ شَاء في دوام هذا المشهد وحصول ثمراته التي أجلها. Although every believer may know that in theory or in knowledge, however, the person who obtains the station of muraqabah is very rare. And la ya'mal fima bainahu wa bain Allah. So therefore, to know the test whether or not you have obtained the station of muraqabah is whether you are able, yes, you are able to feel that al-istihya, to feel modest, to feel shy before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to break the limits that he has set. Alayhi rajul minas salihin. Wa hadha, he said the most minimum, Imam Haddad said the most minimum degree, the least degree of muraqabah is to imagine yourself, yes, that you will not do something what you would feel shy if there is a salih believer amongst the salihin. Meaning to say, supposing you pray alone, yes, the station of you praying alone, will it be the same than if you had prayed, for example, with one of the habaib, with one of the ulama? That's the distance of your muraqabah, isn't it? Because sometimes in front of the salih, yes, you pray and accord every rukun its rights. Tuma'nina is given its full rights. The Fatiha is given its full rights. The movements are all given their full rights when you're praying in the presence of your teacher, when you're praying in the presence of the ulama and salihin. But in truth, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more deserving, yes, of your muraqabah than just doing something in the presence of the salihin. وَهَذَا عَزِيزٌ وَمَا وَرَأَهُ أَعَزَّ مِنْهُ إِلَى أَنْ يَصِيرَ الْعَبْدُ فِي آخِرِ الْأَمْرِ. Yes, so the minimum is to feel, as we said. But the higher degrees of muraqabah may come to a stage whereby a servant, mustaghriq billahi ta'ala, yes, that he becomes, let us say, plumbed, yes, or rather that he becomes buried, that he drowns in the ocean of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's perfection. That he becomes, that he undergoes extinction, let us say. He becomes extinct in the, or rather every other thing in creation becomes extinct to his sight with the exception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقَدْ غَابَ عَنِ الْخَلْقِ بِشُهُودِ الْحَقِّ. Everything in creation disappears when there is only the observation and the witnessing of the truth, yes, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he then has reached the maq'adi sidqin. Yes, he has reached the station of sincerity in the malikin muqtadar, in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now that we have finished reading it, let me just add a few, let us say, a few additional observations to tie up the loose ends. One of which, in summary, is what Ibn Ata'illah as-Sakandari said about muraqabah. He said, Ilahi, my Lord, amiyat, yes, the sight of man have been blinded to those who are not able to see that you are observing. Bi'annaka alayhi raqiba. Sheikh Ali bin Abdullah Bar'as, yes, in giving the sharah of this, the commentary of the meaning that what is that blindness is the failure to see that Allah is observing, reminds us of the verse in which the one which is blind is not the ainul basar, yes, the eye, or the physical eye, but rather what is blinded is the eye of the heart. Meaning to say, the physical eye sees the physical world, but the basira, yes, the light of the soul, the basira sees that which is hidden. Meaning to say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is administering of the world. The light of the basira sees the akhirah, sees the significance of all our deeds. So therefore, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said in the Quran, the one which is blind is not, as we said just now, rather Allah said in the Quran, whoever is blind in this world, then will also be blind in the akhirah. Yes, the blindness of the eye, a person who may suffer that condition in this world, that condition will cease upon your passing. But the blindness of your eye will continue with you in the akhirah. And further, when we speak to speak more finely about the station of muraqabah or vigilance, Shaykh Ali bin Abdullah Bar'as mentions to us that al-muraqabah is a barzakh, is an ismus. It is, let us say, something in between. It is between, in the zahir, muhasabah. Yes, muhasabah is to introspect, yes, to reflect, yes, self-reflection, self-introspection. Now that is al-muhasabah. So the external limits of muraqabah is muhasabah. The internal reality, yes, the batin of muraqabah is al-mushahada, the witnessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore muraqabah is in between. Is in between introspecting yourself, whether you have done your duties properly, whether you have been able to avoid what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits, and internally, yes, once a person comes closer and closer to the reality of muraqabah, like Imam Abdullah bin Alawi al-Haddad has said, is that it is to observe, it is to obtain the sight of witnessing, until when you say ashhadu, yes, that I bear witness, that witnessing is the witnessing of the basira. Until, as Imam Haddad said in the closing of this chapter, that the highest degree of witnessing is to witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before everything. Yes, like some of the Sahaba said, Ra'aytullah qabla kulla shay. Yes, I see Allah before everything. Or rather, that I do not see anything except that I see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before it. And another Sahaba said, I do not see anything except that I see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after it. Another Sahaba said, I do not see anything except that I only see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are realities of muraqabah. Yes. And of course, to bring the point home, yes, with regards to muraqabah, there is a hadith, yes, there is a section of al-muraqabah in the Riyadus Salihin of Imam An-Nawawi, one of the hadith which he collects there, mentions the story of three individuals, each being tested with the condition by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. The one suffering from leprosy, yes, a sickness of the skin. Another suffering from, hair loss, let us say, yes, hair loss. And the third is a blind person. So Allah Subhanahu wa Taala sent an angel to each one of them and asked, if you were given any wishes to be granted by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, what would it be? And certainly, of course, one after the other, the one who suffers from leprosy or a condition affecting his skin, he said, I would wish for a better skin. I would wish for good complexion. Then the angel, yes, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, fulfilled his request, and so he was returned to a condition of not having that sickness or affliction. Then, what of the animals do you like? Yes, or rather, what sort of wealth pleases you? The angel asked, and so this person said, I would like camels. So camels were granted to him until eventually, of course, they would, they would multiply. And the second person wishes for his hair to return, or rather for his scalp to support hair or something of that sort. And then that was granted to him. And then when asked what sort of wealth would he like, he said, I love bakar, yes, cows. So cows were given to him. And then the third, a blind person, he asked the angel for his sight to be restored. Yes, and his sight was restored. And he was given sheep. Yes. Over time, of course, each of these three individuals, the eventual farmers, we would say, that their wealth came to multiply in such a manner that each one of them had their cattle filling entire valleys. Yes, entire valleys. So then Allah Subhanahu wa Taala tests each and every one of them. The first was, was tested by an angel who took the form of an individual who was like him before being cured, yes, before being restored. Then he came and approached him, saying that I am a traveler and I have no wealth, yes, and I'm under this affliction. You care to help me? And then, of course, he said, I implore you by the Lord who has given you health and by the one who has given you wealth, yes, please help me. He said, no, I inherited it. I inherited it when I was an adult, like that, from others, like that, rather than being honest about it. And the second was like that also. But the third, yes, the blind, he said, I was blind and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala gave me sight. Yes, take of the wealth, take of my sheep as much as you please, like that. So that's the condition of muraqabah. So basically, the notion of muraqabah is to be observing, yes, that everything that you own, that you possess, is but a gift from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. The person in the station of muraqabah will know that if you have some knowledge, then it is because Allah has taught you. If you have wealth, it is because Allah has given you. If you are living, it is because He has allowed for you to live. Yes. And if anything amongst your organs that function it belongs to Allah ultimately. And the person who is in a station of muraqabah will always observe and will always seek opportunity to please Allah Subhanahu wa Taala in whatever deeds which is possible. Wallahu a'lam. So inshallah, that is the extent of what we wish to share this morning. If there is any question, ahlan wa sahlan.
Thank you so much, Jazakumullah khair, Ustaz Muhyiddin. So if any of you has got any question, you can unmute yourself and ask directly, or you can type in the chat box, inshallah. Ustaz, So Imam Haddad says that the station of muraqabah is not you need to struggle first to get this to the station of muraqabah. Is that so? I mean, that's the first step, which is to struggle and to push yourself and to be disciplined. Can you perhaps advise us on that point of struggling?
Yes. Now, certainly, when we think about the progression of what the advices Imam Al-Haddad has given us, yes, in this Risalatul Mu'awana, the book of assistance. Of course, he's assisting us with knowledge, isn't it? First and foremost, he told us to obtain certainty, and he has given us the path to certainty, of which includes the constant recitation of the Quran. And then, in the last section, he told us to uh, to to focus on fostering a good ethics of intention. That's a good ethics of intention. Developing an ethics of intentionality, in that you constantly intend for good things, yeah, such that it becomes your state. And then thirdly, now after having completed two very important foundations for a person's iman and faith, the third is to observe muraqabah. It's because sometimes muraqabah is such a noble station, isn't it? Because if a person does not perform the action of muraqabah, then you know within say 24 hours in the day, within the 7 days in the week, um, the ibadah that you have, yes, will be limited first and foremost to the wajib. Yes, and a person may add to that some adhkar. A person may add to that some nawafil prayers. A person may add to that the recitation of the Quran and several other forms of ibadah. But the greater portion of our lives, yes, the greater portion of our lives will require muraqabah. Yes, the greater portion of our lives require muraqabah in terms of the timing, isn't it? It is muraqabah that makes you feel, or that is needed from time to time when you're required to make fast decisions, isn't it? Because it is the muraqabah that tells you, yes, when you know that Allah is watching you, that you should intend what is most likely to benefit your life of the akhirah. Without muraqabah, yes, without muraqabah, then you will focus on what satisfies the nafs. Yes, it is muraqabah which produces shame and shyness before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person who does not perform self-observation in the muraqabah sense, yes, in the sense who does not look in the mirror like that, will take on burdens more than what he can bear. Will not know limits of desires. Will not feel shame, yes, when he suffers, let us say, or when he harms others, yes, and so on and so forth, yes, or would think that he deserves something, yes. And in the ahadith which is included in the section of muraqabah, Imam An-Nawawi includes ittaqillaha haythu ma kunta, that you should have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wherever you may be. So basically, do not leave your house except that you carry in your consciousness the observation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not, the person who is a muraqib is a person who knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with him wherever he may be. Yes, because some people, they believe that when they whisper, somehow they are free to do what they want. And some others, Allahu Akbar. And today, one of the greatest causes of mischief, one of the greatest causes of harm and sin is a person's ability to hide behind anonymity, isn't it? Now that is lack of muraqabah. When a person can use a username on the internet, and he or she may comment whatever he or she may please. When a person hides behind power, that is also lack of muraqabah. When a person hides behind, let us say, inequality of rights, and inequality of access, and the disability pertaining to the other person from demanding rights from you, that is like a muraqabah. And a person, for example, who hides behind, or rather who suffers from lack of muraqabah, will think that if you are wealthy, you will remain wealthy. If you have wealth, you will remain wealthy. So you feel that you have no need for the poor. So therefore, you will only want to give your attention to those who are wealthy, to those who are powerful, because you desire more and more of that. But the person who observes muraqabah will know, for example, or rather will focus on his wealth, will focus on everything that Allah has given him. They will ensure that it is in line with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you so much, Ustaz. If there is no other, okay, that's fine. You want to read Ustaz?
Okay, there is a question. Orang awam do not have a murabbi who can tarbiyah outside themselves from time to time to actually correct our behavior and observe. Then I say mujahadah, take as what was that. To remind ourselves that this body is minded. This muraqabah station. Murabbi. Of course, that is one of the great tajdid, the renewal of Imam Abdullah bin Alawi Haddad in the 17th century. Yes, since 3 centuries ago, he initiated a new era for self-improvement, let us say. Of course, he did write in the Adab Sulukil Murid that a person who is capable ought to find a sheikh. Yes, and of course the criteria of the sheikh is laid out, and the adab with the sheikh is laid out. The murabbi and the muallim, the mashayikh, like that. And of course, that would be the most optimum route, isn't it? The most optimum route. Imagine just even in the form of ta'aleem, yes, in the form of teaching, yes, the notion of sanad, yes, the notion of sanad is not merely for the sake of barakah, but also as a means of verification, whether or not what you think you understand is the same as what ought to be understood. Yes, because the Prophet has left behind his wirata, let us say his inheritance for this ummah, yes, to be inherited one generation after the other. So the generation who has been corrected, who has dah disemak by the generation before that, yes, they will then pass on the knowledge to the other generation, ensuring that there is no corruption between one generation and the other. So certainly, having a teacher will protect you from greater regions of error, And likewise, the murabbi, certainly, the murabbi is the person who observes you both in the zahir and the batin sense, and helps you improve yourself gradually, little by little. The murabbi is the one who you seek nasiha, and the person you seek nasiha from is basically a person who is giving you protection from harm, isn't it? The person who's giving you nasiha is giving you a tahsin. Yeah? The person who's giving you advice is giving you a means of immunity and protection. Like the doctor, isn't it? If you meet a medical practitioner, then she advises you to take on a certain course of medicine, to avoid taking certain things, to avoid doing certain strenuous activities and so on. That advice which she gives you is a means of protection from error. That which might cause great harm to your body, yes, great affliction. So similarly, the function of the sheikh, the function of the teacher is to do that with the talib, with the murid, yes, in that the sheikh, yes, of course, certainly that the sheikh would have to be somebody who has underwent training with another sheikh himself, like that. Now, but does it mean that if you are bereft of a direct contact with the sheikh like that you cannot improve yourself? Certainly not. Yes, and this is one of the reasons why Imam Abdullah bin Alawi al-Haddad chose to write. Yes, he chose to write and wrote extensively and sought the da'wah at-tamma, yes, and sought the complete calling of the entirety of the ummah, in that his books are to be beneficial, yes, are beneficial for everyone, in the same way as the Ihya Ulumuddin was written by Imam al-Ghazali to be benefited by everyone in the community. And certainly you can, certainly even Sheikh Abu Samad al-Falimbani, despite him, being of the Sammaniya order, despite him encouraging cultivation of relationship between teacher and student, he has also given, an outline of self-improvement in the individual sense, meaning to say, if you are, let us say, you are incapable of finding, or, perhaps if the person, he does not inspire trust and confidence like that, yes, it's in the case that if you have, dodgy teachers or sketchy teachers, it's better not to have them, isn't it? Because who knows, the sort of abuse and scandal that can happen. But if if you cannot find a true teacher, then, take Imam Haddad as a teacher. Take Imam al-Ghazali as a teacher. Follow their advice sincerely, earnestly, because he wrote it, with the intention of benefiting the entirety of the Muslim Ummah. And certainly all these practices would not harm you, isn't it? To imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you, to imagine that, rather to imagine and to observe, to be vigilant that the angels are there, to be vigilant also of the reality of death, yes, and then to be vigilant of the reality of the heaven and hell. All those things can be found in the Quran. And the Quran is for the rest of mankind. Yes, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides whomever He wills. The ultimate and the true teacher is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. Inna Allah ajtaba, Allah chooses to Him whoever He please. Wa yahdi ilayhi, and He guides unto Him man yunib, whoever turns to Him. So in reality, even the teachers, what are their role and function? Their role and function is to turn you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah may choose you to turn him towards Himself. Yes. So therefore, what is most important is sincerity. Yes, is sincerity. Is to correct your intention constantly, and then to have, in the advent of not yet finding a suitable teacher, then to find companions who will be together with you on the path, who will be of mutual advising. Yes, and then maybe after that, what will benefit you is an enemy. I mean, not for you to find one, but to look in the things that the enemy says about you, because sometimes enemies are more honest than friends, isn't it? You ask your friends, how's the cake that I made? They say it's the best in the world. But the person who has hasad, isn't it, will really look into your cake and say, I think it's a bit burnt. Yes, they may say that in order to hurt you, but labas, isn't it? You know that, betul, terbakar sikit, isn't it? The friend said, the most delicious. So it's to balance this out. Yes, to always be, what you need to be vigilant of the most is ultimately the nafs al-ammara. And certainly the practices of Imam Haddad, inshallah, will benefit anyone, and that's why his books continue to be spread, and this is the method which is called the Ashabul Yamin. Okay, please explain if there is a danger of ghurur when one's intention to come closer to Allah has a specific reason. Subhanallah. Okay. Yes, of course. That is why Mashaikh, yes, learned masters in the tradition of Islam, like Imam Haddad, like Imam al-Ghazali, yes, these are scholars, yes, who are, as physicians of the soul. They have looked at the nafs, and they have studied and understood the nafs to such an extent, yes. To the extent that Imam al-Ghazali wrote an entire work on the dangers of ghurur, of deceit. وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. Yes, do not let the life in this world deceive you. Yes, and only sahibul ikhlas, only the people of al-ikhlas, of sincerity, of purity, will be protected from the trappings of the devil, from the trappings of the shaitan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in dialogue with the shaitan that you will not have power. You will not have power over my servants who are mukhlasin, who are sincere. And how do you know that you are sincere? It is to desire nothing higher than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the manner of trying to protect oneself is to constantly be vigilant. Ultimately, the muraqabah is to question yourself why you are doing something. What is the ultimate end? Yes, are you desiring fame? Are you desiring competition? Are you desiring that the hearts and faces turn towards you? Are you desiring wealth? Are you desiring appreciation? Yes. In fact, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, these are cures to our soul. Yes, we need to constantly remind ourselves. Fadhakir. Yes, Allah said, and remind. فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, because reminders will benefit the believers. And one of the ways in which the reminders benefit the believers is when we think again about the stories of the mujahid, the one who struggles in the path of Allah, the warrior, the philanthropist, yes, the person who is generous, who helps others in the sake of in the path of Allah, and the scholar, the alim who teaches others. When they were brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, each one of them was given hellfire precisely because they lacked ikhlas. Yes. The alim did so in order to be recognized and acknowledged as an alim. The rich, generous person in order to be recognized and acknowledged as a generous person. And the warrior in order to be known as a warrior, like that. And so certainly, ghurur is something we have to be constantly vigilant about. And also the test is, if, the test with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will constantly test us. If we desire something else with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then if that something else does not come, does it mean therefore it is not that we will stop being sincere? Yes. Okay. Any others? If not, then over to you.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much, Ustaz, for a very good session. Alhamdulillah. Yes, if you have any more question, maybe you can ask me, pass the question to me through WhatsApp or Telegram, and then I'll send to Ustaz, inshallah. So if that's so, then I'm gonna end the session, today's session, with dua of Habib Ahmad bin Umar bin Sumaid. If you know, you can follow, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbana fa'na bima 'allamtana, Rabbi 'allimna alladhi yanfa'una, Rabbi faqina faqi ahlana wa qarabati lana fi dinina ma lil qutri unsa wa zakar. Rabbi wafiqna fiqhum lima tartadi qawlan wa fi'lan karama warzuqi kulla halalan da'ima wa akhil atiya ulama nata bil khair wa nukfa kulla shar. ربنا أصلح لنا كل الشؤون وأخر رب الرضا منك العيون واقض عنا ربنا كل الديون قبل أن تأتينا رسل المنون أغفر أنت أكرم من ستر وصلاة الله تخشى المصطفى من إلى حق دعانا والوفاء بكتاب فيه للناس شفاء وعلى آل كرم الشرفاء وعلى صب المصابه الغرار اللهم اهدنا بهداك واجعلنا ممن يسارع في رضاك ولا تولنا وليا سواك ولا تجعلنا ممن خالف أمرك وعصاك حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين يا ربنا اعترفنا بأننا اقترفنا وأننا أسرفنا على لظى أشرفنا فتب علينا توبة تغسل لكل حوبة واستر لنا العورات وآمن الروعات واغفر لوالدينا ربي ومولودينا وآل والإخوان وسائر الخلان وكل ذي محبة أو جيرة أو صحبة والمسلمين أجمع آمين ربي فاسمع فضلا وجودا منا لا باكتساب منا بالمصطفى الرسول نهضى بكل سول بالمصطفى الرسول نهضى بكل سول صلى وسلم ربي عليه عد الحب وآله وصحبه عدد طش الصحب والحمد لله للإله في البدء والتناهي والحمد لله رب العالمين. أتي بالفاتحة أستاذ.
القبول وتمام كل سؤال منكم والصلاة دافعة لكل شر جالبة لكل خير لنا ولأحبابنا ولوالدينا بنية أن الله ينور قلوبنا وقوالبنا مع التقى والهدى والعفاف والغنى والموت على دين الإسلام والإيمان سيدي ولد عدنان لكل نية صالحة وإلى حضرة النبي محمد.
الرحمن الرحيم نستعين إلى الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا
السلام
الضالين
عليكم.
آمين. السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Brother Hussein. Assalamualaikum.
السلام ورحمة الله. Thank you. See you again.
InsyaAllah.